meeting of the Airport Commission to order. May I request a roll call?
Kirk Martin,
Here.
Bruce Miller,
Here.
John Clark,
Here.
Chris Colbert, William Gilbert,
Here.
Patricia Griffin,
Here.
Scott Tracy.
Here.
This evening, public comment. Any member of the public may address the Airport Commission on any subject matter within the jurisdiction of the Commission that is not scheduled before them that same day. Total time for public comment is 15 minutes. Are there any public speaker request forms?
I don't have any forms.
All right. Notices. The regular Airport Commission meeting scheduled for Wednesday, December 16th, was 2011, was canceled. Also, that on Friday, January 13th, 2011, at 5 p.m., the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at the Airport Administration. Minutes from the last meeting. Is there a recommendation?
Recommend we accept the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes from the previous meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? Minutes are waived. The consent calendar for this evening, as lengthy as it is there a comment from the Commission?
I'll move for approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstained? The consent calendar is approved. We move to let the record reflect that Commissioner Colbert is precisely on time for Commissioner Colbert. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And liaison reports this evening. We will move to Councilmember Aceves from the city of Goleta, sir.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. It's always a pleasure to be here and staff. It's a lot warmer in here than it is outside. A few things that have happened in our city, just want to give you a quick update. Back in December, we did the rotation of the mayorship. Ed Easton, who was a former liaison to this commission, is now the new mayor serving his first term. And I was honored to be appointed as the mayor pro tem, which means this is my second time, and I'll be mayor next year. So looking forward to that. Last night was a big night for the city of Goleta. We voted to eliminate our redevelopment agency. Those of you who have been following the news, the governor had eliminated the program through legislature, and it was challenged in court. The California Supreme Court decided that the RDA was created by legislature, so therefore it can be eliminated by legislature. But the problem is that no one knows the rules on how to have the RDA go away. We've got debt. We floated a bond for the San Jose Creek, and we feel the bond is safe, but we have to now form an oversight committee. I'm sorry, the city of Goleta is now the successor agency for the RDA, and then there's an oversight committee that's created to oversee the successor agency. We get 2 votes on that committee, and every other special agency, special district that receives funding from the RDA also gets to put a position on there. The chancellor puts someone on. The chancellor for the community college district puts someone on. There's 400 RDAs in the state, so that gentleman has to make, I think it's a gentleman, has to make 400 appointments. So there's a lot of stuff to be done. Has to be put in place by May. Although the RDA gets eliminated February 1st. So we don't know what's going to happen between February 1st and May, but more to follow. It appears that San Jose Creek is still safe. Last year, we did buy a piece of property in Old Town to build a park on Kellogg. It's undeveloped. It's not zoned for park. It's zoned for housing. And part of the legislation is that we have to sell all redevelopment assets. So we may lose that park unless the city can figure out some way of purchasing it from the RDA. And then, of course, the RDA money, which is about $1.2 million, then goes to this oversight committee to be distributed among all the different entities. The biggest loss that we're going to see, other than if we lose this park, is the fact that after the San Jose Creek is done in construction, Echo Fowler is done. Our next step was to do the Hollister redesign. Looks like we don't have any money for that now. So, and that's a really a bad thing for our community, because that's the one thing that everybody wanted, was to see Old Town be updated. So anyway, a lot of things happening, more to follow. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. Seeing none, thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you, Councilmember Aceves. And I believe that we do not have the City of Santa Barbara represented this evening?
Not this evening.
All right. We move on to administrative reports.
Okay, our first item is the Teen Hanger Lottery, which we will not be having since we don't have anybody to pull out of the hat. So that's just a report, and no action is needed. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
Well, I feel most bad for Commissioner Miller, because he is so fond of the
Oh, absolutely.
machine. So.
That is true. Ready for the next item?
Indeed.
As you know, we've begun the master plan process for our new master plan as we finished our previous one. And this evening, Andrew Bermond, who is our project planner, he's assisting Hazel in leading us all through this process. As a short presentation, the committee had asked that we have some guiding principles similar to what we had with the terminal project. And so we have come up with some proposed guiding principles, and I'll let, is that me? Commissioner. I'll let Mr. Bermond.
Thank you, Commission. That introduction actually did a decent amount of my work for me. No, it's all right. The first meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee was on December 7th, and one of the things that the members, with the consensus of the group, was that we should have guiding principles. Just quickly, we, as staff, met and reviewed existing plans and policies for the City of Santa Barbara, previous airport plans, the local coastal program, and statewide policies and policies of other airports, and guiding principles in other airport master plans. And we found some common themes, and we used those to put together the guiding principles that you have before you. They are, first and foremost, safety and security, maintaining economic vitality, transportation diversity, multimodal transportation, and aviation. Community, being a good neighbor with the City of Goleta and the university. Sustainability is, of course, important, and environmental preservation of the Goleta Slough and other sensitive resources is of value as well, and cultural resource protection, both historic and archaeological resources. I sent this last week out to the advisory committee for comment. I received 5 comments. All were favorable as is. No one wanted to make any edits, so I brought this before you for your consideration. And what we'd like to do is take this before City Council when we go to formally initiate a master plan's legislative action. So the first step is to initiate the process at City Council. and I'd like to include these principles as something that the City Council considers. And then just to keep you informed, March 28th is when we're planning to have the next advisory committee meeting. That's a tentative date. And we will have a public workshop in the evening following the advisory committee meeting to have the opportunity to inform and to get comments from the public. So that's the recommendation. And if you have any questions or comments about the principles, I'd be happy to address them.
I have a question, and it has nothing to do with the draft principles, which, you know, I couldn't support more, but it really has to do with maybe a question for Karen, whether the airport has a stated mission, and whether these principles need to tie into the mission statement for the airport
We
from a
do-
planning standpoint.
We do have a mission statement for the airport, and we could add that to it.
Yeah, no, none of those are exclusive of it, but just wondering from a policy standpoint, whether they should be tying into the service mission of the airport,
The mission statement of the airport was one of
the source documents.
one of the things that we reviewed in formulating these principles. I would say that it would
Well
be
within
wise
that.
to include the mission statement in the master plan as well.
You know, one of the nuances that, you know, from my original research way back when, looking at the underlying documents was the covenant that the airport has that's recorded against its property as a mandate from the federal government as far as its you know, what this property is all about, which is sustaining a commercial, I forget what the precise words were, but Karen, maybe you could help me out historically what it says. But you know, our role here is to provide a public airport, and a lot of these are important fundamentals. You know, being a responsible community member, but I think we should just make sure we underscore what our job
What
is
our
here.
prime mission is.
Our prime mission.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we will add that, and these are, you know, all parts of that mission.
Okay.
I don't mean to imply that these guiding principles are meant to be considered in equal proportions. Some may be principles of greater importance, and they may be of greater importance to different groups. But I think this is our attempt at a shared starting point in the planning process.
Yeah, I think you all, the staff, has done an excellent job of synthesizing what I saw as kind of the viewpoints and concerns about expressed by the committee members, and I really applaud what you've done. Kind of boiled it down into some really nice bullet points that I think cover a lot of those areas, and I think everybody should be able to get behind. I can't see anything that anybody could object to there.
No.
A question, what is the timeline for this entire process to take?
Well, master plans are often bogged down, so I'm hesitant to give a definitive date. But 18 months is our anticipated horizon. So, and we started back in December, so early 2013 is when we expect to have a master plan.
Great, thank you.
I would make a motion that we accept the guiding principles as presented.
Second. All those in favor of recommending approval of the master plan process signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The commission recommends approval. We
When
now,
will this be going to the council, any idea?
We haven't set the date yet, but we'll let you know in advance, so if you'd like to be there, then you could.
Thank you.
Thanks. I don't forget. Keep me honest.
moving on to commission matters. The subject is the election of officers and subcommittee assignments. We need to elect a chair and vice chair and make subcommittee assignments. Generally, this is done by either volunteer or nomination. Mr. Gilbert, did you have a question?
Well, I would like to nominate Mr. Tracy for chair this next season. If you will accept it.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored, yeah, I would do that.
I'd like to, in honor of his being his last year on the commission, so we can blame him for everything on his way out, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Clark for chair.
Thank you.
And I actually had been wanting to nominate Commissioner Tracy for the vice chair. Give him some experience at some of those opportunities.
I'm not sure if there's a protocol that you can be nominated for two positions at the same time or not.
I would step back and allow Commissioner Clark to.
So you would
proceed.
accept the nomination for vice chair,
Yes, I
And
think his
decline.
experience would do well in that position.
and I understand that. I'm just making it
Absolutely.
clear what we're doing here. So at the moment, we have a nomination of Commissioner Clark for chair and Commissioner Tracy for vice chair. Are there any other nominations?
I move that we close the nominations.
Thank you. I second that motion. All those in favor of the slate signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the slate signify accordingly and abstain. The chair and vice chair for the coming year should be reflected as Commissioner Clark as chair and Commissioner Tracy as vice chair. Congratulations, gentlemen,
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
on your final descent. I mean, and now, as far as subcommittee assignments, we need, actually, I'm not clear on,
I think we've generally asked if there was anybody who
Yeah.
wanted to withdraw from a subcommittee.
Right. And since you don't have any new commissioners, you know,
It's,
it's a little easier because you all are experienced.
so the subcommittee will continue on as is currently posted.
Well, no, you can, if people want, if commissioners want to change, you can discuss that and change. I mean-
No, they're not allowed to change.
Oh. Well, maybe we need to go on to our new chair.
Are there any commissioners that do wish to change, resign from a subcommittee or add to another subcommittee?
And I believe there is an existing opening on noise abatement. I believe that's the case.
There is?
I believe.
yeah, there's a
Oh, there is.
there's a gap there.
Noise abatement committee has one position open. Are there any commissioners that wish to volunteer for that?
It's not a very active committee.
Commissioner Tracy?
I'm already on there.
He's
We
right.
haven't
Already
met
there.
in quite a while.
You don't have to have three,
Ah, very good.
just to
Well, then we
take the
just won't.
pressure off.
Then at this moment in time, the
Could I ask a
subcommittee.
question?
Yes.
About the ground transportation is starting to ramp up. What is the expected participation in that subcommittee going to be?
My expectation would be that over the next,
I'm sorry, thank you.
I would expect over the next few months, there will be a couple of meetings at least. And then after that, I would expect it, I would hope that it would taper way down.
And we usually get at least 1 or 2 days' notice, right? Mr. Lincoln?
Correct.
Hopefully, much more than that.
Yes, hopefully much more than that.
Any other questions?
No.
All right, then we will move to the director's report.
All right. Our passenger count for the month of December was down 9%. And as I've mentioned in previous months, the airline started reducing seats, not only in our airport, but, across the country. So part of that is, the lack, kind of the unavailability sometimes for people to get maybe the seats on the flights that they want. That doesn't account for the whole 9%, but I think we're starting to see the result of the shrinking of the amount of seats. From year to date, we're down 4.5%. Hopefully, in this next year, hopefully the economy will pick up a little bit better, and people will start flying again. I know. So anyway, hopefully we'll get good service, some new service in the coming year, and also the economy. I think people, their pocketbooks having more discretionary dollars. So anyway, I wish I had better news or better way to better reason for the decrease. The other thing I wanted to bring up, let's see, I think that's all in here, was that we did meet with the Ground Transportation Subcommittee, and I don't know if regarding the proposed ground transportation program for the airport. And we also, Tracy led a meeting with the taxi cab operators. So I don't know if the subcommittee would like to give a brief kind of report on the meeting, and then Tracy can give a very brief summary of the meeting with the taxi cab drivers.
I thought we had touched on that at the November meeting.
We did?
As well. But,
Oh, okay.
Again, it was basically just laying the groundwork for the need for this program, which I think Mr. Lincoln and others have presented a compelling case that there really is a need for more structure to resolve some of the contention issues and various issues that have arisen. And I believe at the November meeting, we had also asked if he might put together just a small presentation just to kind of update everyone on really what the need for this program is. I mean, you're obviously going to be putting a lot of effort into developing this, or at least a certain amount of effort at this, and involving a lot of the stakeholders. And so, any large expenditure of effort, we'd certainly, I think everybody would like to understand why, why is this being done, and what you hope to achieve from it.
Okay, I think at next month's meeting we could kind of bring everybody up to speed. Do you want to report just briefly on the taxi cab operator?
We had the meeting with the taxi cab industry stakeholders just last Thursday, which is why it wasn't on this agenda, because I wanted to be able to include the results of that meeting in our full presentation. But the meeting went well. There was probably 30-something cab operators, both drivers and company owners there. I went through a short list. I gave them a basic presentation for some historical perspective on why we were proposing to implement some new rules, both driver conduct as well as just fee structures and what have you. There was a good acceptance of the need for additional rules of the road, so to speak, as well as an overall, I got good input on service level questions that I was looking to this group for help with. Do you feel it's unreasonable if we require you to have a credit card machine, and other service levels that I needed to hear from the industry on what kind of hardship that was on them to provide? And then we discussed the types of operating agreement that the cab industry felt would be best to serve the airport, whether it was a single agreement and something that's done competitive, or whether it was a totally open system or partially open or partially closed, I guess, depending on how you look at it, as we spoke of in the meeting. And in looking from some of the responses, the different people felt different things, but the great percentage of the attendees in this meeting felt that an open system would serve the industry better than a closed system. The industry was filled with mostly smaller companies, but that was kind of the consensus of the meeting. They were a good crowd to speak to. They participated. They asked a lot of questions, and they definitely agree that some additional folks are needed out there on the curb to make sure things go along as they should.
I'd like to make a request for future meetings, 'cause I know there's been two meetings, and I know my work schedule way in advance, and both times I was not able to attend because it conflicts. So can we have advance notice so that we can, for myself anyway, plan dates that I would be available for those meetings? I appreciate that.
I also was at that meeting and wanted to compliment you, Mr. Lincoln, because you had a diverse audience, and they did have different people had different opinions, as you stated, and you conducted the meeting, and it was a very, very positive meeting, and we learned a great deal as to what was needed and also what they appreciated and how they responded to what we are trying to figure out. And so I felt that it was a true exchange of information, and it was a well administered meeting. So. Any other questions or comments on that meeting?
And that's all I had for the director's report, unless you have something that I didn't mention that you'd like me to speak to.
Just a couple compliments and comments on the communication to the community on the change in the parking and the change in the configurement of the road. It was announced very well. It was attracted to virtually every press opportunity in town, and I don't think there were too many unpleasant surprises by the public. And also the fact of the holiday planning and the smoothness and the effortless ease for all the travelers going through the airport at the more busy times. So my compliments to the staff.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask for a brief update on the historic terminal relocation project.
Oh, okay.
Moving right now.
Yeah, it's the old terminal, or the historic portion, has been moved into place, so above the foundation. It's about 4 feet above it on trailer, is that what it is, a trailer jacks, or, and they had, even though we, discovered early on there were some discrepancies between the way that the original building was actually built as compared to the plans that it was built from. When they moved it into position, it's still off a little bit, so they're trying to figure out, from the foundation, so they're trying to figure out where exactly that discrepancy is. And I asked our engineer, well, what happens if the foundation is off? And they said that we would just add foundation to where the building is. So anyway, they're still trying to figure that out, and that's partly why it's still 4 feet in the air. But you can get a sense, I think, of, as strange as it looks, the way it looks, of how it will fit in with the rest of the terminal. And you've all seen the elevations that were done during design. So this is kind of the messy part of getting it in place. So we'll see how it goes. And hopefully we're supposed to have rain this weekend, I guess. But hopefully it won't be enough to, delay us too long, because the engineers have said that we could be done with the whole project in April if we don't get too much rain that would delay it. So otherwise, it will probably be June.
Was this a big surprise when they just got it over there that they realized, like, did somebody measure the building?
Oh, yeah, they surveyed it. I mean, it was. Yeah, it was surveyed.
I was just curious.
But when you look at that old building, and, in 1942, I seriously doubt they surveyed anything. I'm sure it was probably using your thumb.
And they probably stretch when you drag them around. You
Well,
can't
yeah,
put them
they
back together,
probably
right?
do. They probably do. And I noticed part of the tower, the stairs have kind of crumbled a little bit. So there'll be a lot of, reconstruction to do to get it in place. Don't ask me. I don't know.
So when they actually do set it on the foundation, will that, since it's on its final approach, will that come from the tower? Or will it be?
It's a ground control function.
Yeah, okay. Well, I must say, I was out here for a couple times, and I brought clients out here for coffee downstairs pre-security, and watched it as it was rolling and moving, and it was pretty darn exciting to watch from a
As
little
slow
boy
as it was.
standpoint.
As slow as it was.
And more importantly, are we going to have an opening gala mini?
Yeah, we will have a very mini, and we'll invite about 10 people that will fit in the lobby.
Everybody will have a balloon?
Right. We will have some celebratory, but obviously not as big as the gala.
I had a question about, you have your ear to the ground and the industry. And a lot of the magazines and newspapers that I read, aviation related, they're talking about the Obama administration and this $100 per flight fee that is on the table to be approved. And I'm curious if you've heard anything or thought anything of that and how it might affect GA and commercial here at our airport with the master plan.
I haven't heard anything from, other airport directors. I don't know if you've heard anything. It's not a new concept. The FAA at various times has proposed, sort of when you're ready to land, you give your MasterCard number or something, and you're
Yeah.
charged for the landing.
It seemed
So
like
I-
a shift from the pay at the pump to pay per flight,
Right.
which could be a nail in the coffin for a lot of small operators, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the airlines obviously are supporting general aviation, paying for more of what they consider its fair share of the system. But I haven't heard anything, and maybe it's because we've heard this before, and nothing has come of it. I assume AOPA is active in.
Yeah, that's where the buzz is starting to be heard and some other aviation publications. So you might start hearing more about that.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, it would be a shame, I think.
Is there a motion?
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Second. All those in favor of adjournment?
Let's go.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.